Do you have an Android device? Maybe you're holding one in your hand right now. Okay, now imagine holding 11 million Android devices, but all of them are compromised. All through the Google Play Store. All from apps you trusted. Before we continue the video, just know this. This isn't some random attack. This is the latest evolution of a threat that's been playing cat and mouse with security researchers for 5 years. From 2019 to 2024. Getting smarter. Getting more dangerous. The criminals behind this, call it Necro. By the end of this story, you'll understand exactly how they did it. How they took something as simple as a camera app and turned it into a gateway for online theft. How they learned from every takedown, every security patch, and how they used that knowledge to create something that fooled Google's own security systems. This is the story of the Necro Operators, and why your phone might not be as safe as you think. Let me take you back to August 2019. Cam scanner. You probably had it on your phone at some point. Maybe you still do. Over 100 million people downloaded this app. A simple document scanner. Trusted. Verified. Featured on the Google Play Store. But Kaspersky researchers were digging through the app's code when they found something that shouldn't have been there. A file called mutter.zip buried in the app's resources. The file came from a malicious advertising library that someone had slipped into Cam Scanner's code. And when you opened the app, it would decrypt and execute whatever was hidden inside that zip file. A dropper. That's what security researchers call it. Malware designed to install other malicious programs on your device. Think about it. 100 million users, all running what they thought was a legitimate productivity app, all unknowingly carrying a digital weapon in their pocket. Google acted fast. The app vanished from the Play Store within hours of the discovery. The developers scrambled to release a clean version. Crisis averted, right? Wrong. The Necro Operators were watching, learning, taking notes on exactly how their first attempt failed. And they had 5 years to figure out how to do it better. 5 years. That's how long the Necro Operators spent in the shadows after the Cam Scanner takedown. Most people assumed the threat was dead, buried with that simple dropper from 2019. But the 2019 takedown didn't end the threat. It educated the attackers. They evolved their malware into a complex, multi-stage loader. Not just one piece of malicious code anymore. Multiple stages. Multiple layers of protection. They started using advanced obfuscation tools like LLVM Obfuscator. These tools scramble code so badly that security solutions can't figure out what it's supposed to do. Imagine trying to read a book where every sentence has been cut up and rearranged randomly. But that wasn't enough. They built anti-analysis techniques into their code. The malware could detect if it was running on a security researcher's debugging tools or emulator environments. If it sensed it was being watched, it would shut down and play dead. By the time they were ready to strike again, they had created something that security systems struggle with. A piece of malware that could adapt on the fly. September 2024. The Necro Operators were ready to unleash their masterpiece. They went after developers. They weaponized something called SDKs, software development kits. These are the tools that app developers use to build their apps. The Necro Operators created malicious SDKs, like Coral SDK, and, well, slipped them into the development process. When developers unknowingly used these compromised tools, they were essentially building the malware directly into their own apps. This is what security experts call a supply chain attack. Instead of breaking into the house, you poison the materials used to build the house. Then they launched a dual distribution campaign that hit users from 2 directions simultaneously. First, they infected legitimate apps on the Google Play Store. Apps like Wuda Camera with over 10 million downloads. Max Browser with over 1 million downloads. Then they hit the underground channels. Modified versions of popular apps that people download from unofficial sources. Spotify Plus. GB WhatsApp, FM WhatsApp. Game mods for Minecraft. Stumble Guys. Car parking multiplayer. Melon Sandbox. There was nowhere safe. Once installed, The first stage of their malware would reach out to command and control servers to fetch something called the shell plugin payload. This was just the beginning of the infection chain. This dual-channel approach would prove devastatingly effective, because no matter where you got your apps from, the Necro Operators had found a way to reach you. Millions of Android users were about to become unwitting participants in this mobile malware campaign. Cybersecurity researchers were deep in their analysis when they stumbled across something that made them do a double-take. PNG images. Innocent-looking pictures embedded in the infected apps. This is steganography, and it's virtually unheard of in mobile malware. They were hiding malicious code inside the blue-color channels of the pictures. That's steganography in action. You're looking at what appears to be a completely normal image file. Maybe it's an icon. Maybe it's a background picture. To your eyes, it looks perfectly innocent. But buried in the blue pixels is executable malware. Here's a quote about the malware directly from researchers. If we consider the blue channel of the image as a byte array of dimension 1, then the first 4 bytes of the image are the size of the encoded payload in little endian format. That sounds really technical, but it's simple. Basically, the first 4 pixels in the blue channel tell the malware exactly how much hidden code is stored in the rest of the image. Next, the payload of the specified size is recorded. This is a jar file encoded with base 64. Base 64 encoding converts binary data into text format. So, the malware takes executable code, converts it to text, and then hides that text inside the blue pixels of an image file. When your phone opens the app, it extracts this hidden code using something called DEX class loader and executes it. But that's not even the most sophisticated part. The hidden payload wasn't just one piece of malware. It was 6 modular plugins, each with its own criminal function, each with its own MD5 hash that we tracked. nproxy, island, web/lotus SDK, happy SDK, cube SDK, and tap. 6 separate criminal tools, all hidden inside what looked like innocent image files. The Necro Operators had figured out how to turn pictures into weapons, and they'd done it so well that millions of people downloaded and installed these weaponized images without ever knowing they were there. Google immediately began removing the infected apps from the Play Store. Wutacamera, Max Browser, and dozens of other compromised applications disappeared overnight. Google Play Protect started issuing warnings and blocking installations of known malicious apps. But it's already too late for millions of users. Kaspersky's telemetry data tells the real story. From August 26th to September 15th, 2024, they blocked over 10,000 attacks globally. 10,000 separate attempts to infect Android devices with Necro malware. That's just what one security company caught. Imagine how many others there are. The geographic data is revealing. Users in Russia face the highest infection rates. Then, Brazil, Vietnam, Ecuador, Mexico, Taiwan, Spain, Malaysia, Italy, and Turkey. But the real impact wasn't just about infection numbers. Compromised users suffered financial losses from subscription fraud. Their devices were running slower because malware was eating up system resources in the background. Oh yeah. And personal data was harvested and sold on criminal marketplaces. The Necro Operators had turned millions of Android devices into profit generators. Do you remember those 6 modular plugins I told you about? Let me break down what each of those 6 plugins actually did to your phone. nproxy created proxy tunnels for traffic routing, basically turning your device into a gateway for other criminal activities. Your phone became part of their infrastructure. Island displayed intrusive ads at pseudo-random intervals, not just annoying pop-up ads. Targeted ads designed to generate revenue for the operators while eating up your data and battery. Web/Lotus SDK opened links in invisible web view windows for subscription fraud. You'd never see these windows, but they were silently signing you up for paid services in the background. Happy SDK downloaded and executed arbitrary DEX files. Think of it as a backdoor that could install any malicious code the operators wanted, at any time. Cube SDK loaded other plugins for background ad handling. More ads, More revenue. More system resources stolen from your device. And tap-downloaded JavaScript and WebView interfaces for ad interactions. Another revenue stream hidden from your view. Each plugin was harvesting specific device data and transmitting it back to command and control servers. Your screen size, RAM, IMEI, IMSI, and operating system version. Unique identifiers that could be used to track your specific device across the internet. Your phone isn't just a device anymore. It's a potential playground for organized cybercrime. If you have an Android phone, you should probably look out for Necro. If you want advice on how to stay safe, ask me in the comments. February 24th, 2022. Russian tanks crossed the Ukrainian border. At that exact moment, 40,000 internet connections die across Europe. Not just Ukraine. Germany, France, Italy, Hungary, Greece, Poland. Thousands of people suddenly cut off from the internet. No warning. No explanation. You're about to see how a single misconfigured VPN brought down an entire satellite network. How legitimate management tools became weapons of mass disruption. How a cyber attack launched from space rippled across continents. The target was Viasat's KSAT network, a massive satellite internet system connecting millions across Europe. You see, the attackers knew exactly what they were doing, timing the attack to the minute as tanks rolled across borders. The attack was from no one other than the Russian military intelligence. But the real mystery? How they got inside in the first place. Let me take you back 24 hours before the attack started. February 23rd, 5 p.m. local time. Viasat's security logs start recording failed login attempts on their VPN system. Then at 6 p.m., the attempts stop failing. They started succeeding. 8 p.m., they're inside the management network. There was no evidence of a data breach. No signs of credential stuffing or password attacks. No indication of malware stealing login information. 3 years later, we still don't fully know how they got in or what valid credentials they used. What we do know is they were in. They moved laterally through the network like they had a map. No fumbling around. No triggering alerts by poking at systems they shouldn't touch. Now it's February 24th, and Russia's invasion was about to begin. February 24th, early morning. While Russian tanks crossed the border, acid rain was deploying. The attackers used Viasat's own management system, the legitimate tools designed to configure customer equipment. They sent commands to thousands of satellite modems simultaneously, commands that looked completely normal to the network. Authorized, expected. These commands weren't meant to configure anything. They were designed to destroy. Acid rain used input-output control commands to send direct instructions to the device hardware. These were the 4 commands they used. Mem-get-info to check the flash memory layout. Mem-unlock, which removes write protection. Mem-erase, to wipe everything clean. And Mem-write-OOB, which overwrites the critical connection data. The malware systematically erased flash memory in each targeted device. But it didn't permanently brick them. Just wiped the configuration data that let them access the network. The modems would need factory resets or, honestly, complete replacement to work again. You can't reboot your way out of wiped flash memory. Meanwhile, the attackers launched a DHCP flood attack. Over 100,000 requests in just 5 minutes, trying to overwhelm Viasat's network management systems. This secondary attack failed. Viasat's defenses held. The DDoS got mitigated, but acid rain was already working. What happened next was bad. 5,800 wind turbines across Germany went dark. Not offline. They were still spinning and still generating power. But their operators couldn't see them, couldn't control them remotely. These weren't Ukrainian infrastructure targets. These were German wind farms operated by Enercon, critical pieces of Europe's energy grid. When acid rain wiped those satellite modems, the turbines went into what engineers call island mode. They kept generating power, but they couldn't tell anyone how much. Couldn't receive commands to ramp up or down based on grid demand. The attack spread across 6 countries. France lost rural internet backhaul connections. Italy's maritime communication systems went offline. Poland lost backup links for cross-border infrastructure monitoring. 1 satellite network compromise. Multiple NATO countries affected. Critical infrastructure operators suddenly blinded during a major geopolitical war. March 15th, 2022. Someone in Italy uploaded a file to Virus Total. The file name was simple: UKR Ukrainian Operation. That file was Acid Rain, the same malware that had wiped 40,000 satellite modems 3 weeks earlier. Someone had captured it during the attack and uploaded it to Virus Total. Sentinel-1, a major player in the cybersecurity industry, got their hands on the sample. They found that Acid Rain used the exact same memory commands as another piece of malware. Mem get info to scan the device. Mem unlock to prepare the memory. Mem erase to wipe it clean. The previous malware was called VPN filter. The FBI had attributed VPN filter to Russian military intelligence, the GRU. But Acid Rain was different in one crucial way. VPN filter targeted specific router models with precise exploits. Acid Rain was built for maximum compatibility. The malware brute force device names. It tried several different device paths that I'm showing you here on screen. Then it tried additional ones, systematically hunting for any flash memory it could destroy. The evidence was overwhelming. The developmental ties to Russia due to VPN filter malware were undeniable. But obviously it was the timing of the attack that was the dead giveaway. February 24th, 4 a.m. local time, Russian tanks crossed the Ukrainian border. February 24th, 4 a.m. local time, 40,000 satellite connections died across Europe. The same hour, the same minute. May 10th, 2022. The European Union, United States, and United Kingdom issued a joint statement. They formally attributed the satellite attack to Russia. Behind the scenes, investigators from multiple agencies had been working together. Mandiant, the NSA, European intelligence services, they'd all reached the same conclusion. But formal government attribution is rare in cybersecurity. Countries usually hedge their language. They say likely, or probably, or consistent with previous activity. Not this time. Meanwhile, Viasat was dealing with the aftermath. They had to fix nearly 30,000 affected modems across Europe. Service was gradually restored, but it took months. Russian cyber operations didn't stop after February 2022. Intelligence agencies documented continued activity onward. Even now, 3 years later, in 2025. For you watching, maybe you have Starlink internet. The next time you lose your internet connection, ask yourself, is this just a dropout? Or did a sophisticated threat actor just bring it all down? This story might resonate with a lot of my target audience. If you're watching, you're probably in your 20s or 30s, from America, with big dreams in cybersecurity. You want to land those lucrative security consulting contracts. But here's the problem. How do you prove you're a good pen tester? How do they know you can find vulnerabilities? Most people would build a portfolio, get certifications, network at conferences. This guy called Nicholas Kloster had a different idea. He'd hack companies first, then pitch them his security services. He showed them exactly how vulnerable they are, then hand them a business card. It's completely illegal. But Kloster wasn't thinking like a typical cyber criminal. He was thinking like an entrepreneur. In March of last year, he started working for a corporation. Legitimate job, steady paycheck, access to company resources. That's when he made his first move. He bought what he called a hacking thumb drive, a device advertised as being able to exploit vulnerable systems. But he bought it with his employer's credit card. stolen company funds to buy hacking tools while employed in a corporate role. Most hackers try to stay invisible. They want to take your money and disappear like a thief in the night. Kloster wanted the opposite. He wanted you to know exactly who hacked you, because that was his sales pitch. The question isn't whether this strategy could work. The question is how spectacularly it would backfire. So for you wannabe hackers watching this video, you might want to pay attention. By April 30th, 2024, Kloster's corporate career was over. His employer had discovered the unauthorized purchase. But it wasn't just the thumb drive. The company demanded the return of stolen items. This suggests a pattern of behavior that went beyond a single impulse buy. Getting fired is devastating for most people. For Kloster, it became his origin story. He had no job, but he still had that thumb drive. That hacking thumb drive he'd purchased. Well, it was likely loaded with boot disk technology. Here's how it works. You plug a specially configured USB drive into any Windows computer and restart it. The computer boots from your USB instead of the hard drive. This bypasses all the normal login screens and password protections. Tools like Offcrack or the offline Windows password and registry editor can then reset administrator passwords or create new user accounts. Suddenly, you have full access to a system that was supposedly secure. The beauty of this technique, from a criminal's perspective, is its simplicity. You don't need to be a coding genius. You don't need to discover zero-day exploits. You just need physical access to a computer and a $20 USB drive. For someone like Kloster, who wanted to demonstrate vulnerabilities to potential clients, it was perfect. He could walk into any business, plug in his device, and within minutes have complete control of their systems. So he gets fired on April 30th. Within days, he would put this plan into action. But first, he needed a target. And he found the perfect one. His local gym. On April 26th, 2024, just 4 days before his firing, Nicholas Kloster walked into a health club in the Kansas City area. He wasn't there to work out. He was there to prove a point. The gym was part of a chain operating multiple locations across Missouri and Kansas. Hundreds of members. Security cameras mounted on every wall. A computer system managing member accounts, billing, and access cards. A Google Fiber router handling internet connectivity. All of it connected. All of it an attack vector for Kloster. Kloster identified visible IP addresses for the security camera system. A common oversight that many businesses never consider a threat. Who's going to hack a gym's cameras, right? Wrong. Within hours, Kloster had gained access to the security camera feeds. But he didn't stop there. Using those same visible IP addresses, he penetrated the Google Fiber router settings. This gave him his first entry point into the network. From there, he accessed the member database, and this is where his actions crossed from demonstration into outright fraud. He found his own membership record and made 2 critical changes. He reduced his monthly membership fee from whatever he was paying down to just $1. Then he erased his photograph from the system entirely. But Kloster wasn't done. Before leaving, he stole a staff name tag, physical evidence of his breach that he could wave around as proof of his capabilities. Then came the worst part. He sent an email directly to the gym owner. Not a generic contact form submission. Not a phone call. It was a detailed email explaining exactly what he'd done and how he'd done it. I managed to circumvent the login for the security cameras by using their visible IP addresses, he wrote. I also gained access to the Google Fiber router settings, which allowed me to use redacted to explore user accounts associated with the domain. He laid out his criminal activity as a sales pitch. The email continued with his business proposition. Essentially, hey, I just robbed you. Want to hire me to prevent other people from robbing you? The thing is, IP cameras are notoriously vulnerable because many businesses never change default passwords or properly secure them. The techniques Kloster used are taught in basic cybersecurity courses as examples of what not to do. But it worked. He'd gained complete access to a multi-location business's security infrastructure using methods that anyone motivated enough could learn from YouTube tutorials. And he was just getting started. No police showed up at his door. No federal agents came knocking. The gym owner probably didn't even know how to respond to such a brazen admission of criminal activity. For Kloster, this wasn't a warning sign to be more careful. It was validation that his business model could work. He just needed to think bigger. Weeks passed after the gym hack, and Kloster posted a screenshot of the gym's security camera system on social media. You could see the feeds, multiple camera angles. The interface showed he'd completely popped their network, but the screenshot wasn't the worst part. It was his caption: how to get a company to use your security service. Rule number 1 of any criminal operation is operational security. Don't document your crimes. Don't post evidence online. Don't connect your real identity to illegal activity. Kloster violated everyone. Kloster was creating his own prosecution file, one social media post at a time. Meanwhile, he was expanding his toolkit. The boot disk that got him into local systems was just the beginning. He was learning about VPN installation techniques. You know about VPNs, right? Like IP Vanish. A VPN with malware and tracker blocking. Link in bio if you want to check it out. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is once you compromise a system with physical access, you can install remote access tools. When used maliciously, a VPN client on their network can give you a persistent backdoor. You can access their network from anywhere, extract data over time, monitor their communications, turn a one-time physical breach into an ongoing attack. Kloster had his sights set on a target that would also trigger the kind of federal response that would put an end to his services. On May 20th, 2024, Nicholas Kloster walked into a non-profit organization. This wasn't a gym with very poor security. This was a restricted facility with sensitive information and federal compliance requirements. But Kloster went on in anyway with his boot disk. The nonprofit had multiple computer workstations, employee accounts, donor information, financial records, grant applications. Basically, everything a charitable organization needs to operate. Kloster plugged in his boot disk and restarted one of their computers. According to court documents, Kloster utilized a boot disk, which enabled him to access the computer through multiple user accounts. By accessing the computer in such a manner, the use of this boot disk enabled Kloster to circumvent the password requirements and change the password assigned to one or more of the users. He wasn't just looking around their systems, he was taking control of employee accounts, changing their passwords, locking out legitimate users while granting himself administrative access. Once he had administrative control, Kloster installed VPN software on their network. For weeks, maybe even months, Kloster had a front-row seat to everything this nonprofit was doing. The financial impact was immediate and devastating. The organization had to hire cybersecurity experts to assess the damage. They had to rebuild their entire network infrastructure. They had to notify donors that their personal information might have been compromised. Their remediation costs exceeded $5,000. Money that should have gone to their mission instead went to cleaning up after Kloster's demonstration. But, you know, the dollar amount doesn't capture the full impact. Sensitive information was compromised, and the organization came to a halt while they figured out what Kloster had done. Again, this was a serious federal crime. The social media posts that Kloster made to get new contracts? Those became Exhibit A. The detailed emails explaining his methods? Exhibit B. The stolen staff, name tag, physical evidence of criminal trespassing. Closter had solved the hardest part of any federal investigation. He'd documented everything himself. On November 19, 2024, federal prosecutors issued an indictment against Nicholas Closter on two specific charges. First, accessing a protected computer to obtain information. Second, causing reckless damage to a protected computer during unauthorized access. These are serious federal crimes under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the same law that goes after major cybercriminal organizations and nation-state hackers. One cybersecurity expert who reviewed the case described his methods as bold rather than sophisticated. Most federal cybercrime cases involve complex malware, advanced persistent threats, zero-day exploits that cost tens of millions to develop, criminals who spend years covering their tracks and hiding their identities. Closter used a $20 USB drive and posted evidence on social media with his real name attached. The arrest came shortly after the indictment. 7 months later, on June 25, 2025, Nicholas Closter pleaded guilty to computer hacking charges. He's facing up to 5 years in federal prison, a fine up to $250,000. 3 years of supervised release after prison, and restitution to every victim he damaged. Real cybersecurity professionals help organizations protect themselves. They follow ethical guidelines. They get approval before testing systems. They document vulnerabilities responsibly. Closter broke into systems, changed passwords, installed backdoors, stole data, and posted evidence on social media. So what do you think? Do you think he deserved the punishment?
Hi, this is from IT. I need to reset a password for one of our executives.
The voice sounds professional, confident, and maybe just a little rushed, like they've got 50 other calls to make today. Because, honestly, they do. This exact conversation happens thousands of times across corporate America every single day. Help desk workers hear it, and they want to help. That's literally their job. But sometimes that voice isn't calling from IT. Sometimes it's calling from a bedroom in Birmingham, or a Discord server in Detroit. Sometimes it belongs to someone who calls themselves Scattered Spider. They don't break down doors or exploit complex vulnerabilities. They don't need to. They exploit something far more powerful, something you can't patch with software updates. They exploit you. How? Well, it's simple. Social engineering. The art of manipulating us to bypass the security systems. They don't attack your firewalls. They attack your trust, your helpfulness, your basic human instinct to assist someone who sounds like they need help. The results speak for themselves. Billions in losses. They'll milk anyone if they get the chance. And to make matters worse, some of these master manipulators are barely old enough to drive. They go by the names Octopus, UNC 3944, or, most famously, Scattered Spider. What I'm about to show you will change how you think about every phone call you ever take. Two years ago, they started with SIM swapping. Convince a carrier to transfer someone's phone number to another phone that you control. Suddenly, every text message and every two-factor authentication token flows straight to you. It worked on regular people, crypto investors, small businesses, but Scattered Spider wanted bigger games. September 2023, Las Vegas. 2 phone calls. 2 of the most security-paranoid companies on the planet, Caesars Entertainment and MGM Resorts. Think about what these places deal with every day. Card counters, con artists, professional thieves. They've got cameras watching cameras, security teams that could run small armies. None of it mattered. Hi, this is from IT. We're having issues with the Okta system and need to reset some administrator credentials. That's it. That's all it took. At Caesars, someone in IT heard the call, wanted to help, followed procedure, reset the password. The attackers were in. Driver's licenses, social security numbers, credit card data. Everything Caesars had collected on millions of customers over decades. Scattered Spider demanded $30 million. Caesars paid $15 million. Just to make it stop. At MGM, the story played out differently. Same phone call, same helpful IT worker, same devastating access. But MGM said no to the ransom. September 11th, 2023. Every slot machine went dark. Reservation systems crashed. The casino floor fell silent. MGM disclosed the breach the next day. By January 2025, they'd settled lawsuits for $45 million. 2 phone calls, $90 million in combined losses. WTF, right? And that was just the beginning. See, Scattered Spider didn't stop with casinos. Their hit list reads like a Fortune 500 directory. Microsoft, T-Mobile, Twitter, Binance, Coinbase, Verizon, AT&T, Slack, Epic Games, Riot Games, Best Buy. Over 130 major organizations, all from phone calls. They'd evolved their technique too. MFA fatigue attacks. They'd spam you with authentication requests until you approved one just to make the notification stop. Your phone buzzing every 30 seconds, push notification after push notification. Eventually, you'd hit approve just to get some peace. If you actually do this, you deserve to get hacked. But anyway, the help desk workers never saw it coming. The best part is that Scattered Spider did it all from their bedrooms and Discord servers, connected through Telegram channels and encrypted chat rooms. October 2024, a manufacturing company somewhere in the Midwest. The phone rings at 9:30 a.m. Same voice, same confidence. Hi, this is from IT. We need to reset the CFO's password for the quarterly board meeting. By 3:30 p.m., every system in the building was encrypted. 6 hours, from initial call to complete destruction. Here's what changed. Scattered Spider evolved. The phone call was still the entry point, but what happened next was elite trickery. First, they went after the super administrator credentials. Once they had those, they moved to the company's ESXi environment. Think of ESXi as the brain that runs multiple virtual machines on a single server. Most companies run their entire IT infrastructure this way. But instead of immediately attacking, they created their own virtual machine inside the ESXi environment, their own little hiding spot right inside the company's servers. It's like breaking into someone's house and building a secret room in their basement. You're living there, but nobody knows you exist. From this virtual hideout, they deployed reconnaissance tools, AD Recon, AD Explorer, SharpHound. These tools map corporate networks like a GPS system maps city streets. They identified every computer, every server, every user account, every privilege level. They knew the network better than the people who built it. Then they moved to the company's Okta account. Okta controls access to a company's enterprise applications. Get into Okta, and you can access everything else. How'd they bypass the multi-factor authentication? Verizon IPv6 addresses. And voice over IP services. They spoofed the company's phone system to make it look like the authentication requests were coming from inside the building. Brilliant, right? Next, they hit SharePoint. You should all be familiar with SharePoint, right? They downloaded everything. Terabytes of data flowing to mega cloud storage accounts. Before they deployed their ransomware, they sabotaged the backup systems. Every automated backup. Every disaster recovery plan. Every just-in-case safety net. They deleted it all. Then they waited. At exactly 3:30 p.m., 6 hours after that first phone call, every screen in the building went dark. Then they lit up with ransom demands. The company had no backups, no recovery options, no way out, except to pay. This wasn't the chaotic phone call and pray approach from the casino attacks. This was planned and executed with decent hacking skills. By now, Scattered Spider was getting better and better every day. February 2025. London. Most people don't think about the NTDS DIT file. Why would they? It's just a database that sits on corporate servers. Contains every user account, every password hash, every access privilege in a company's Active Directory system. But to Scattered Spider, it's like stealing the blueprint to the safe room. Marks & Spencer's IT help desk got the call on a Tuesday morning. Same script, same professional voice. Hi, this is from IT. We're having authentication issues with the domain controller and need to reset some administrative accounts. By the end of the day, the NTDS DIT file was gone, copied, sitting on servers controlled by teenagers in bedrooms thousands of miles away. For 2 months, nothing happened. Marks & Spencer operated normally. Customers shopped. Employees worked. Systems hummed along like clockwork. Nobody knew the attackers were already inside, mapping networks, planning their strike. April 24th, 2025. You wake up, grab coffee, Head to M&S for lunch. Your contactless payment doesn't work. The cashier tries the card reader. Nothing. Sorry. Our systems are down. Cash only today. You shrug it off. Technical glitch. These things happen. But it wasn't just one store. Every Marks & Spencer location across the UK went dark simultaneously. Contactless payments failed. Online shopping crashed. Mobile apps stopped responding. The attackers had deployed DragonForce ransomware directly onto the ESXi hosts. Every virtual machine, every application, every database, encrypted in minutes. But this wasn't just about M&S. The supply chain disruption rippled outward. Empty shelves in convenience stores, canceled deliveries. This had a real impact on people that were just trying to buy some groceries. The financial damage? £300 million in lost profits. But that number doesn't capture the full picture. Then Co-op got hit. Same pattern. Same phone call. Same devastating result. Harrods followed weeks later. This wasn't random targeting. This was systematic industry destruction. One phone call at a time. Scattered Spider had learned something important from their previous attacks. Don't just hit one company. Hit the entire sector. Create chaos that consumers actually feel. Make it personal. And before anyone knew what happened, the evil Scattered Spider gang had already moved on to bigger targets. June 2025. 3 years. 3 years since those first phone calls in Vegas. But June 2025 was different. This wasn't just another attack. This was the moment everything clicked into place. June 7th. Erie Insurance. Network administrators notice unusual activity in the morning. June 9th. Philadelphia insurance companies. Same story. Both companies had dealt with cyber threats before. Insurance companies always do. They hold massive databases of personal information. Social security numbers, medical records, financial data. They're constant targets. Screens started lighting up. Not with traditional ransomware messages. Not with the usual skull and crossbones graphics or countdown timers. The ransom demands came through Microsoft Teams. Imagine that. Just working and chatting with colleagues when your Teams notification pops up. Your network has been compromised. All data encrypted. Pay $50 million in Bitcoin or lose everything. Both companies' networks went down simultaneously. Insurance companies process millions of claims every month. They could even be medical emergencies or car accidents. Who knows, but people depend on it at their worst of times. Scattered Spider stripped this away from people with phone calls they screen shared to their group members in Telegram and Discord. June 7th, June 9th. 2 days apart. 2 massive insurance companies. Same playbook, same devastating results. And if they could infiltrate corporate Teams channels to deliver ransom demands, what else could they do? Rewind back to June 2024. One of the core members of Scattered Spider got arrested. His name was Tyler Buchanan. Law enforcement celebrates. Press releases go out. Major cybercriminal taken into custody. But the funny thing is, the cyber attacks continued without missing a beat. Scattered Spider isn't a traditional criminal organization. No hierarchy. No boss calling the shots. No central command. It's a fluid collective. Members as young as 16. Scattered across the UK and United States. Connected through Telegram channels and Discord servers. You arrest one member, 2 more take their place. Cut off one communication channel, they spin up 3 new ones. The teenagers bringing down Fortune 500 companies weren't following orders from some criminal mastermind. They were sharing techniques, trading access, collaborating on attacks like it was a video game tournament. Remember that hook from the beginning? Some of these master manipulators are barely old enough to drive. Now you know why that's so terrifying. These aren't hardened criminals with decades of experience. They're kids who grew up on Discord, who learned social engineering from YouTube tutorials, who treat corporate infiltration like a competitive PvP game. Tyler Buchanan's arrest taught them to be more careful. By the time law enforcement figured this out, Scattered Spider had updated phishing kits, targeting luxury brands like Audemars Piguet, mainstream companies like Chick-fil-A, dynamic DNS techniques that made their infrastructure nearly impossible to track, servers popping up in different countries faster than authorities could issue takedown requests. Listen carefully. This is a warning, a public safety announcement. U.S. retailers are being targeted. Right now, as I'm writing this in May 2025, they've got active campaigns running as we speak. You probably missed that news. Cybersecurity never makes the headlines. But it's happening as you're watching this. They've expanded beyond phone calls too. CVE 2015-2291. Exploitation to disable security software. They had expanded their ransomware arsenal too. RansomHub variants. Qilin deployments. Different tools for different targets. The question isn't whether they'll strike again. The question is who they'll call next, and whether that voice on the other end of the line will sound just helpful enough to get what they need. Hi, this is from IT. I need to reset a password for one of our executives. The conversation you heard at the beginning? It could be happening to your company's help desk right now. You're a Ukrainian military officer stationed near the eastern border. Your inbox pings. New message. Military-themed subject line. PDF attachment dated June 1st, 2025. Location stamp shows Uzhhorod. Right there in your operational area. Everything looks legitimate. The formatting's correct. The language feels right. Even the geographic references check out. You click. That single click just triggered something horrible. You see, the PDF you just opened contains weaponized links pointing straight to files hosted on Mega.nz. Mega.nz isn't some sketchy underground site. It's a legitimate cloud storage service. Millions use it daily. Security systems don't flag it. IT departments don't block it. Perfect cover. The attackers crafted these lures with intimate knowledge of Ukrainian military operations. They timed everything around rising tensions and peace negotiations. The martial law period in 2025 added to the intensity. There was fear and urgency everywhere. This is spear phishing at the highest level. Not random spray and pray attacks. The hunt was about to begin. April 4th, 2025. CERT-UA, which stands for Computer Emergency Response Team Ukraine, gets their first alert. CERT-UA is Ukraine's cybersecurity watchdogs. When something hits Ukrainian networks, they investigate. The alert wasn't dramatic. No alarms blaring. Just another suspicious file flagged for analysis. But this one was different. Ukrainian military units were getting hit. Law enforcement agencies too. Local government systems showing signs of compromise. All connected to those PDF lures we talked about. The investigators started piecing it together. Those PDFs from Mega.nz weren't just decoys. They linked to something called OLE documents. OLE documents are Microsoft Office files with embedded macros. Think of macros as tiny programs that can execute code when you open the file. Here's the trap. The document opens. Looks normal. But it asks you to enable macros. Click here to view the full content. Most people click. The moment you enable those macros, a PE file downloads and executes. That's your malware payload. CERT-UA discovered they were dealing with something called GIFTEDCROOK version 1. GIFTEDCROOK version 1 had one primary mission: steal browser data, your saved passwords, login cookies, session tokens, everything your browser stores to make your life convenient. The malware targeted Chrome, Edge, Firefox. It harvested data from all major browsers, then it compressed everything into neat zip archives. Why zip files? Easy to transfer, hard to detect, organized for the attackers. But here's what caught the investigators' attention. A Telegram bot address was embedded directly in the malware code, visible during analysis. Almost like the attackers weren't worried about being discovered. That should have been their first warning sign. This was far from amateur. May 16th, 2025. Ukraine and Russia begin negotiations in Turkey. Prisoner exchanges. Ceasefire discussions. The world's watching diplomatic progress unfold. That same week, GIFTEDCROOK evolved. Coincidence? Not a chance. The attackers rolled out the version 1.2, just as negotiators gathered in Istanbul. They knew exactly what they were doing. While diplomats talked peace, cyber operatives prepared for intelligence collection. GiftedCrook version 1.2 wasn't just stealing browser data anymore. The malware had learned new tricks. Custom exclusive or encryption for starters. XOR is a simple but effective encryption method. It uses a repeating key to scramble data. Makes forensic analysis harder. The encryption key? I'm showing you on screen here. But encryption was just the beginning. Version 1.2 expanded the malware's capabilities completely. No more focus on just browser credentials. Now, it wanted comprehensive file collection. Documents up to 5 megabytes. Modified within the last 15 days. Think about that targeting. 15 days. Recent files. Active documents. Current intelligence. The malware searched for .doc files. .docx files. PDFs. Plus proprietary formats that suggested deep knowledge of victim systems. June 2nd approaches. Istanbul Agreement on Prisoner and Body Exchange scheduled. Reuters reported, Ukrainian negotiators at talks scheduled for June 2nd in Istanbul will present to the Russian side a proposed roadmap for reaching a lasting peace settlement. 3 weeks before those critical talks, GiftedCrook version 1.2 was already deployed and collecting. The attackers weren't just collecting standard files. They were hunting for proprietary extensions. Files ending in .bwet extensions. You've never heard of .bwet files. I haven't either. These aren't standard Windows formats. Not Microsoft Office. Not Adobe. But it got worse. GiftedCrook was also collecting OpenVPN configuration files. OpenVPN configs contain network access credentials, server addresses, authentication keys, everything needed for persistent remote access to internal networks. Steal those files, and you don't need to break in again. Meanwhile, the psychological warfare intensified. Ukraine's martial law period created perfect cover for social engineering. Administrative fines, military mobilization notices, emergency directives from local authorities. Fear makes people click. The attackers sent emails to Bakhmut authorities, using undisclosed recipients in the header. This technique masks the true target list. You can't see who else received the same message. Creates isolation. Makes victims feel specifically targeted. The same email infrastructure was delivering other malware. NetSupport.rat distributed through JavaScript files. One operation. Multiple attack vectors. Coordinated intelligence collection. Then came GiftedCrook, version 1.3. This was, honestly, a complete transformation. The analysts at Arctic Wolf started their examination like any other malware sample. Load it into the sandbox. Watch it execute. Document the behaviors. But, version 1.3 combined everything. Browser data theft from version 1. Comprehensive file collection from version 1.2. All wrapped into one devastating package. The file collection expanded again. Now, hunting documents up to 7 megabytes. Extended the time window to 45 days. But it came with a new nasty surprise. Sleep evasion. Security sandboxes analyze malware by running it in controlled environments. They watch for malicious behavior. Most malware executes immediately. Easy to catch. GiftedCrook version 1.3 learned patience. It would sleep. Wait. Do nothing for extended periods. Sandboxes have time limits. They can't wait forever. Eventually they time out and report the file as benign. Then the malware wakes up, starts its real work. The analysts had to modify their analysis approach just to catch this thing in action. When they finally captured the full execution chain, they found the motherlode. Telegram bot exfiltration channels. 2 different API endpoints. Version 1.2 sent stolen data to the first Telegram bot endpoint. Version 1.3 used a different Telegram bot endpoint. The malware created organized directory structures. You can see the path structure I'm showing you on screen for systematic file collection. Chrome cookies, Edge login data, Firefox session tokens, Office documents, PDFs, those mysterious .bwet files, open VPN configurations, everything compressed, encrypted, transmitted through Telegram's API. 3 months of evolution, and the attackers had built a completed espionage platform. And they'd been operating undetected until now. The investigators kept digging. They found something that chilled them. An auto-eraser script. infomasterdelete.bat. Most malware authors are sloppy. They leave traces everywhere, you know? Fingerprints scattered across infected systems. Not these attackers. The script was elegant, brutal, effective. Here's what that looks like. I'm showing you the script on screen. This batch script functions as an auto-eraser, effectively deleting the original info stealer and obliterating all traces of its presence within the system. The loop structure kept running until every trace disappeared. No error messages, no failed deletion alerts. It's hardcore. But the forensic team had captured enough before the cleanup ran. They started connecting dots across the infrastructure it used. Same hosting providers, shared email servers. Net support RATs used identical delivery mechanisms. Analysis of victims' email infrastructure revealed those SPF settings with the question mark weren't a coincidence. The email systems had weakened SPF settings. SPF stands for Sender Policy Framework. It's supposed to prevent email spoofing. These systems used question mark all settings. That question mark means neutral. Not blocking. Not enforcing. Just allowing. They'd systematically identified Ukrainian organizations with weakened email security, mapped their defenses, planned their approach. There are real ways to catch this threat, and others like it. Monitor file paths. Specifically, the directory structure I showed you earlier. That directory structure isn't standard Windows. It's a signature. Track Telegram API communications. Look for patterns where legitimate applications shouldn't be calling Telegram APIs. Especially those send document endpoints. Watch for distinctive file search patterns. Most legitimate software doesn't hunt for .bwet files or collect OpenVPN configs alongside browser cookies. Ukrainian governmental and military institutions remain primary targets. Just because I showed you how the attack unfolded doesn't mean the threat just disappeared. The next diplomatic summit will bring new variants, new encryption keys, new Telegram bots. The hunters behind this campaign who go by the name of UAC-0226 are still hunting. Air-gapped networks. The ultimate cybersecurity defense. No internet connection means no hackers, right? Wrong. I'm about to show you how a USB worm called Hyupan changed everything. The discovery came from a Taiwan manufacturing company. In March 2025, their investigation revealed a piece of malware designed specifically to jump between isolated systems. Hyupan lands on your system as usbconfig.exe. Looks innocent enough. But it's actually sideloading a malicious library shown here. The worm copies itself to this directory on your C drive. It hides in plain sight among legitimate Intel files. Then it establishes persistence through your Windows registry. Every time you boot up, it's there waiting. Every time you plug in a USB drive, Hyupan copies itself to a hidden subdirectory. The folder name? 15 underscores. Try finding that without knowing exactly what to look for. The configuration file tells the whole story. Each infected USB becomes a delivery mechanism, spreading silently between air-gapped systems that were supposed to be untouchable. Behind this operation sits Hive 0154, also known as Mustang Panda, a China-aligned threat actor that overlaps with multiple other groups. Stately Taurus, Camaro Dragon, Twill Typhoon, Earth Preta. Taiwan wasn't alone. From late 2024 through early 2025, Hive 0154 was actually running simultaneous campaigns across the United States, the Philippines, and Pakistan. The method was, honestly, kind of elegant. Phishing emails with Google Drive URLs. Click the link and you download a weaponized zip archive. Inside, a benign executable paired with a malicious DLL called Claim Loader. Pakistan got hit first, on February 12th. The Lure, a file referencing multiple Baloch Liberation Army factions. That was perfect bait for intelligence analysts tracking insurgent activity. The U.S. National Security Council was next, on April 17th. NSC meeting minutes landed in inboxes, just as tensions were rising in the South China Sea. Each campaign used the same infection chain. The user clicks a Google Drive URL, downloads the archive, and runs what looks like a legitimate executable. But that executable triggers DLL sideloading, a technique where malicious code hides inside a seemingly harmless library file. Claim Loader has actually been evolving since 2021. It decrypts and injects something called pubload. Then, pubload downloads PubShell for command and control access. The Philippines military got their turn on March 20th. They received a file called The Military Balance 2025. Military strategists honestly love these annual defense assessments. Then came an invitation to the interagency meeting for the 46th Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit on April 29th. Each campaign left fingerprints, mutex identifiers that prevented multiple infections. There were different codes for Pakistan, the US, and the Philippines. But all roads led back to the same command and control server I'm showing you here. By late April 2025, Hive 0154's claim loader variants were using triple DES encryption, and not just any encryption. They were XOR encrypting API names and using native Windows APIs for dynamic import resolution. Translation? The malware was hiding its true functions even from security tools. Pubload creates fake TLS application data packets. These packets start with 170303 headers. To network monitoring tools, they look like legitimate HTTPS traffic. Your firewall, honestly, just sees what appears to be normal web browsing, but it's actually encrypted command and control communication. The persistence mechanisms were bulletproof. Registry keys under this one here. Scheduled tasks executing every 5 minutes. Miss one, the other kicks in. The beacon structure tells the whole story. TLS header 170303. Payload size in big endian format. Then XOR encrypted data containing the victim's GUID, computer name, and whatever intelligence the malware collected. All of this flowing back to that same command and control server, 218.255.96.245. But that wasn't the only server. ToneShell was using these two server IPs here. Command codes were simple but effective. Code 1, wait. Code 2, create file. Code 5, create reverse shell. Code 7, terminate shell. The PRNG generated encryption keys changed constantly. Breaking one session meant nothing for the next. This wasn't just malware. It was a super advanced intelligence collection platform, and they were about to turn it on a very different kind of target. The Tibetan community was next. Imagine your most deeply held beliefs being weaponized against you. That's exactly what Hive 0154 did next. May 21st, first lure drops. The World Parliamentarians Convention on Tibet was planning their biggest gathering in years. First time ever hosted in Japan. 5 days later, May 26th, a file submitted from India written in Tibetan script. Translation: Bilingual Education Reform Report. This targeted Human Rights Watch concerns about Chinese assimilation policies in Tibet. Someone had done their homework on what would make Tibetan activists click. Then, May 28th, Voice for the Voiceless Photos.exe. The timing wasn't coincidental. The Dalai Lama had published a book in March 2025 discussing dialogue with Chinese leaders on Tibetan independence. The attackers were leveraging fresh cultural conversations. Each lure used the same sophisticated technical framework from the previous campaigns. Same TLS masquerading, same persistence mechanisms, same command and control infrastructure. But now they were targeting parliamentary reps, human rights activists, and diaspora organizations across multiple countries. The WPCT convention was scheduled for June 2nd through 4th in Tokyo. 142 parliamentarians from 29 countries would attend. June 2nd, 2025. Tokyo. 142 parliamentarians from 29 countries gathered for the World Parliamentarians Convention on Tibet, first time ever hosted in Japan. The timing wasn't coincidental. Hive 0154 had been building toward this moment for months. Representatives from Belgium, Japan, and 27 other nations spent 3 days crafting the Tokyo Declaration, a formal condemnation of Chinese repression in Tibet. While they debated in conference rooms, malicious archives were already spreading the furor through their networks back home. Post-convention, new archives started appearing. 9th WPCT region-wise action plans on Tibet.exe, mixed right in with legitimate photos from the Tokyo gathering. Here's where the deception gets really interesting. At first, you download what looked like a photo album from the convention. Inside, real docx files, actual JPG photos, meeting minutes. Everything looked legitimate. But hidden among the genuine files were executables with identical names. One sitting right next to the other. One click on the wrong file, game over. Imagine being a Tibetan activist. You've just received photos from the most important parliamentary gathering on Tibet in years. You're eager to see the images, share them with your community. You click what you think is a photo. Instead, you've just installed Claim Loader. The DLL begins its sideloading process. Pubload gets injected. Your system reaches out to this IP address, and now they're inside your network. The convention was over, but the war was just beginning. In June 2025, while Tibetan activists were still processing what had happened, Hive 0154 had already moved to their next target, U.S. Pacific Fleet. U.S. Pacific Fleet Working Group Meeting.exe. The lure worked so well because the United States Pacific Fleet supports U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, the same command that would coordinate any response to a Taiwan crisis. They were mapping the exact networks that would matter in a real conflict. The technical signatures were identical. Same TLS 1.2 application data packets with those distinctive 170303 headers. Same claim loader DLL sideloading. Same progression from pubload to pubshell. But the infrastructure had expanded. This IP address was still active, but now these ones were handling overflow traffic. Hive 0154 operates through subclusters. Think of them as specialized hunting parties, each one focused on different regions, different targets, different development cycles. It was exactly at this point when Hive 0154 revealed their most sinister plan yet. July 6th was approaching, the Dalai Lama's 90th birthday, one of the most significant cultural celebrations in the Tibetan world. They turned that celebration into a weapon. The Tibetan subcluster was pushing malware tied to the Dalai Lama's birthday. The Pakistan subcluster was refining their Baloch Liberation Army lures. The U.S. subcluster had moved from National Security Council to Pacific Fleet, all happening at the same time. The USB worm Hugh Pan was still spreading too. Every few weeks, new variants appeared. This wasn't a campaign that had ended. It was a campaign that had scaled. The defenders were playing catch-up with an adversary that had never stopped moving. Every signature they blocked, every C2 server they identified, every technique they detected. It was already being replaced. Right now, as I tell you this, it's only July 1st. The Dalai Lama's birthday hasn't happened yet, and the clock is ticking to July 6th, the most significant date in the Tibetan calendar. If you want to know what happens, subscribe, and I'll report back on this crazy threat. Hive 0154 aren't going anywhere. IBM X-Force put it best. Hive 0154 remains a highly capable threat actor with multiple active subclusters and frequent development cycles. Their assessment is clear. Entities at risk of Hive 0154 activity should remain at a heightened state of defensive security. That's a warning. And here's the thing that should keep you awake at night. Hive 0154 is just one group. China-aligned, sure. But they overlap with Stately Taurus, Camaro Dragon, Twill Typhoon, and Earth Preda. How many other groups are out there running similar operations? $36.5 million in stolen credit card data. That's what one Russian cybercriminal claimed he'd helped orchestrate in just 1 year. His name was Shamel. At least, that's what he called himself in the underground forums where he built his empire. I want you to understand something about modern cybercrime. It's not some kid in a basement anymore. It's become a business. A service industry. Shamel didn't break into your computer himself. He didn't need to. He created something called malware as a service. Think of it like renting a weapon. For anywhere between $250 and $1,000 a month, criminals could rent Shamel's creation, a piece of malware called Lumma Stealer, point-and-click cybercrime. Shamel launched Lumma in late 2022. Within months, it exploded across the underground marketplace. Criminal customers lined up to rent his software. By late 2023, Shamel was bragging about his client base. About 400 active clients, he told an interviewer. 400 criminals, all running his malware, all stealing data, all paying him monthly subscriptions. You use subscription services for Netflix, Spotify, maybe your gym membership. Shamel's customers subscribe to steal your personal information. This is the story of how Shamel's empire grew beyond anything law enforcement had seen before, and how they brought it down. But first, you need to understand just how massive this thing became. $10 million systems. That's how many computers Shamel's customers had infected since late 2023. That's 10 million people's lives compromised. Their saved passwords stolen. Their browser cookies harvested. Their cryptocurrency wallets emptied. Here's what Lumma Stealer actually does. It's called an information stealer, or info stealer in the underground. Once it's on your computer, it goes hunting. Chrome passwords? Gone. Firefox saved logins? Stolen. That MetaMask wallet where you keep your crypto? Drained. But getting onto 10 million computers? Hackers needed to find a way to seriously mass distribute the malware to achieve that. So, Shamel's customers got creative. They hid Lumma in GitHub comments. Legitimate developers would post code and criminals would reply with helpful links. Try this fix, they'd say. Click the link, download the solution, and you've just installed Lumma. They built deepfake websites impersonating Microsoft and Booking.com. Perfect replicas that would fool anyone rushing through a download. The malware came disguised as legitimate software updates. They ran malvertising campaigns. Those ads you see on sketchy streaming sites, some of them weren't selling cheap electronics. They were selling you malware. The victims weren't just random people either. PowerSchool got hit. That's the system that manages student records for thousands of schools. Hot Topic, the retail chain. Circle CL, a platform that millions of developers rely on. Even Snowflake, the massive cloud data company. But Shamel's network was thinking bigger than just stealing your Netflix password. They'd figured out how to attack the internet itself. In Spain, criminals used stolen credentials from Lumma infections to hijack something called a RIPE account. RIPE manages internet routing for Europe. With those stolen credentials, they could redirect internet traffic wherever they wanted. They'd essentially hijacked part of the internet's GPS system. Orange Spain, one of the country's biggest telecom providers, had their traffic rerouted through criminal infrastructure. Everywhere you looked, Lumma was spreading. Every click could be a trap. Every download could be compromised. And it was accelerating. At this point in our story, Lumma Stealer had now achieved 394,000 new infections. That's what Microsoft's security researchers discovered between mid-March and mid-May 2025. Think about that number. Nearly 400,000 computers compromised in just 2 months. The infection rate was accelerating. The malware was using a technique called process hollowing. Lumma would hijack legitimate Windows processes. It would hollow out the following executable, msbuild.exe, Microsoft's own build tool, and run its code inside that trusted process. Your antivirus sees msbuild.exe Running? That's normal. That's supposed to be there. Except now it's stealing your passwords. Explorer.exe, the Windows file manager you use every day? Lumma could hollow that out too. Your computer would look completely normal while criminals drained it. The encryption had evolved as well. Early versions of Lumma used simple, exclusive OR encryption and base 64 encoding. Child's play for security researchers to reverse engineer. But Shamel's developers had upgraded to Cha-Cha 20, military-grade encryption, the kind of protection that takes serious computing power to crack. They'd implemented something called FNV1A, hashing for runtime API resolution. That's technical as hell, but it makes it nearly impossible to analyze what the malware is doing, even if you capture the traffic. Every browser you use was a target. Chrome saved your work passwords. Stolen. Edge stored your banking logins. Gone. Firefox remembered your email credentials. Harvested. Your cryptocurrency wallets were prime targets. MetaMask, where you keep your Ethereum. Electrum for Bitcoin. Exodus for your crypto portfolio. Lumma knew exactly where to look and how to extract the private keys. Lumma wasn't just after your browser passwords either. The malware was specifically targeting PDF files and Word documents, corporate reports, financial statements, legal documents, the kind of files that contain information worth far more than credit card numbers. May 13th, 2025. Microsoft's Digital Crimes Unit filed legal action in federal court. Within hours, 2,300 domains went dark, not seized one by one over months, not taken down through slow bureaucratic processes. 2,300 criminal domains seized simultaneously across the globe. The FBI, the Department of Justice, Europol's European Cybercrime Center, Japan's Cybercrime Control Center, all moved in perfect coordination. Other cybersecurity research and intelligence companies joined the hunt and provided information to law enforcement. Stephen Masada from Microsoft's Digital Crimes Unit put it simply: "We're severing the communications between the malware and the victims. Here's what makes domain seizures so devastating. Lumma Stealer needs to phone home. It steals your data, but then it has to send that data somewhere. Those somewhere addresses? They're domains. Cut off the domains. And you've essentially cut the phone lines. The seized domains were redirected to government sinkholes. Every piece of malware trying to connect would instead connect to servers controlled by feds. Shamel's empire had just lost its primary communication network, but criminal networks this sophisticated don't go down without a fight." May 19th. 2 Lumma login panel domains seized overnight. The criminal administrators woke up to find their control panels redirected to government warnings. But Shamel was furious. He started to fight back. Within 24 hours, he'd spun up 3 new domains. Fresh infrastructure. New command and control servers. The criminal enterprise was adapting in real time. Then, on May 21st, all 3 new domains seized. Every backup server redirected. The criminals had spent a day rebuilding their entire operation, and law enforcement crushed it in minutes. Listen carefully for what I'm about to say. The Lumma administrators had built something called dead drop resolvers, backup systems hidden in plain sight, Steam gaming profiles, Telegram channels, places where malware could check for new instructions if the main servers went dark. They'd embed encrypted commands in gaming profiles and social media posts. It was like a spy network using dead drops, except the spies were pieces of malware checking public profiles for their next orders. Even with this backup system, the rapid domain seizures were strangling the operation. Communications between the malware and its controllers were breaking down. That's when Brett Leatherman from Microsoft's Digital Crimes Unit dropped the real number. 1.7 million instances of data theft since November 2023. Not just infections. Actual, successful data thefts. 1.7 million times Lumma had successfully stolen someone's personal information. The scale was staggering. But for the first time since this operation began, law enforcement was moving faster than the criminals. We're now entering Lumma Stealer's breaking point. Within days, Shamel's infrastructure was wrecked. Every seized domain became a window into his operation. The domains weren't just shut down. They were redirected to sinkholes. That basically means they were sending traffic to intelligence-gathering servers that collected data on every piece of malware still trying to phone home. Think about it. Millions of infected computers were still out there, still running Lumma Stealer. But now, when they tried to send stolen data to criminal servers, they were actually connecting to the investigators. Matthew R. Gagliotti from the Justice Department put it this way, and I quote, "The Justice Department is committed to using all tools at our disposal to protect the American public from cybercriminals." The seized infrastructure had become a massive intelligence operation. So, what happened to Shamel himself? That question remained unanswered. The damage was already done, and it went deeper than anyone initially understood. And that's the story of how a $36.5 million criminal empire was dismantled in a matter of days. But if you're a follower of mine, you'll know this doesn't mean the end for Lumma Stealer. Shamel is still out there hiding from extradition, likely in Russia. Will Shamel return even stronger than before? If you want to find out, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll be the first to let you know. Remote workers and contractors, listen up. You're working from home. Another Tuesday morning, another VPN connection to make. If you work remotely in any capacity, you probably will resonate strongly with what I'm about to show you. It's your first day, and your IT department sent you a link to download Sonic Walnut Extender version 10.3.2.27. This software lets you connect to your company's network like you're sitting right there in the office. File uploads, downloads, network drives. Everything works exactly as if you never left the building. NetExtender is critical for thousands of small and medium businesses. IT administrators rely on it. Contractors use it daily. If you work remotely in any capacity, you've probably used something just like it. The website looks official. Clean design, proper branding, all the right logos in all the right places. The installer file? Digitally signed. That little check mark your system shows when software is verified and trustworthy. This is how we're supposed to do it, right? Download from legitimate sources. But what you're about to download isn't what it seems. I'm going to tell you about a campaign that turned one of the most trusted pieces of remote access software into a weapon. Fast forward to this past June. SonicWall's security team is going about their day. Then they spot something that doesn't belong. Their legitimate NetExtender software is showing up in places it shouldn't be. Websites that look official but aren't theirs. Download links that mirror their real distribution channels perfectly. But the malicious installer was digitally signed. Properly signed. By a company called CityLight Media Private Limited. When you see that little verification checkmark, a digital signature, your system is telling you, this software has been verified by a trusted entity. Most security systems automatically trust signed executables. They distributed their Trojanized version through spoofed websites that looked identical to SonicWall's official channels. Perfect replicas. Same fonts, same layout. Your antivirus wouldn't flag it. Your operating system would trust it. When SonicWall's investigators started tearing apart the malicious installer, they found the attackers had taken legitimate NetExtender software and performed precise modifications on two critical components. First, they targeted kneeservice.exe. This is a Windows service that runs in the background, handling the core security functions for NetExtender. It's the component that validates digital certificates and ensures secure connections. The attackers patched it at every single location, where certificate validation results are evaluated. Every single location. The patch bypasses the check, allowing execution to continue regardless of validation results. Think about the level of reverse engineering required for this. They had to map out the entire certificate validation process, identify every point where the software makes security decisions, and then surgically disable each one. But they weren't done. The second modification was to netextender.exe itself. They added completely new code designed to exfiltrate VPN configuration data, usernames, passwords, domain information, everything you'd need to access a corporate network. This is where the real genius shows. They didn't just steal the software and slap malware on top. They integrated code so slick that the software still functioned normally. Users would connect to their VPNs, access their files, do their work, all while their credentials were being harvested in the background. So, what happens if you installed the software? Once you click connect, well, it's pretty much game over. The software acts like everything is totally normal. It validates your connection and even shows that you're connected to the VPN. But here's the thing. After you enter the VPN configuration details and hit that connect button, the malicious code actually does its own validation before anything else. It's checking to make sure the data is complete, properly formatted, and honestly, worth stealing. Then, it quietly packages everything up and sends it out over port 8080 to IP, address 132.196.198.163. But who controls the server at that IP address? Where is it located? What kind of operation are we dealing with here? When SonicWall's investigators ran a lookup on the IP address, they found the server wasn't hosted in some shadowy underground cybercrime haven. It wasn't running out of a basement in Eastern Europe or some offshore bulletproof hosting service. It was sitting in a Microsoft data center in Boydton, Virginia. Microsoft had actually been helping SonicWall investigate this attack. Microsoft's own threat. Intelligence team was working to uncover who was behind this sophisticated campaign. And, yeah, the entire time, the stolen credentials were flowing to a server hosted on Microsoft's own infrastructure. Microsoft has these massive data center facilities, rows upon rows of servers humming away, processing legitimate cloud workloads for businesses around the world. Email servers, file storage, web applications. All the infrastructure that keeps the internet running. And somewhere in those racks, there was a server collecting stolen VPN credentials. The attackers knew that using legitimate cloud infrastructure would make their command and control traffic way harder to block. Once SonicWall and Microsoft figured this out, they shut down the operation. SonicWall worked with Microsoft to take down the spoofed websites that were distributing the malicious installer. Microsoft revoked the certificate issued to City Light Media Private Limited. No more digitally signed malware from that source. SonicWall's own Capture Advanced Threat Protection with SonicWall. Real-time deep memory inspection technology now detects the malicious installer as GAV FakeNet Extender. Trojan. Microsoft Defender flags it as Trojan Spy. Win32/silentroot.a. The investigators documented everything. They published the technical hash of the malicious installer. They shared the command and control server details 132.196.198.163 over port 8080. It's strongly recommended that users download SonicWall applications only from trusted sources. They specified SonicWall.com and MySonicWall.com as the only legitimate download locations. The immediate threat was neutralized, and their infrastructure was dismantled. The indicators of compromise were distributed to security teams worldwide. But what I'm still really worried about, if I have to be honest, is how they were able to obtain legitimate certificates for malicious purposes. City Light Media Private Limited was incorporated in December 2020. That's almost 5 years before this attack was discovered. But this attack fits into a much larger pattern that's been building for years. Back in January 2023, Iranian VPN users were targeted in a similar campaign. Different software. Same concept. Weaponize the tools people trust to connect securely to networks. Then in May 2025, just months before the net extender attack, security researchers discovered the Winos 4.0 malware campaign. That one was attributed to the Void Arachne threat cluster. Again, VPN software was a primary target. You see the pattern? VPN software isn't just software to these attackers. It's a golden ticket. When you compromise VPN software, you're gaining access to entire corporate networks. You can move laterally, access sensitive data, establish persistent footholds. This net extender attack is not unique. It's just the attack that happened today. The techniques used in this attack won't disappear. They'll spread. Other sophisticated actors will study this. So if you're working from home and use a VPN, just remember what you learned today.